Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Can you hear me in the back? Can you hear me in the corner? In the middle? We're all good? Awesome. So we are going to be starting our very, very brief program. Thank you for coming. If you would like to take a minute to just find a seat, we have some presentations for you and we'll go over the program together. Inshallah, that means God willing in Arabic. Okay. I'm going to assume everyone that wants to sit has found a seat and begin. So first of all, Assalamu alaikum. This means peace upon you. And all the Muslims in the room just responded wa alaikum assalam, and it just means and peace unto you as well. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight for OBRF's first open house. We are honored by you joining us, and we're so thankful to the Philberg Center for hosting us, not just tonight, but we also had an evening gathering last night as well. So thank you to the Philberg Center, and thank you to the Courtney community for welcoming us with open hands and open hearts. The intention for this open house is to just build community. We are much stronger when we understand each other, and this, we hope, will demystify Islam and also Muslims for you, show you what we have in common, what we maybe differ on, and how we can support each other to stay stronger together. It's just easier to be united when we understand each other. So thank you for your open hearts. Okay, moving on. So this is the program for the evening. I will hopefully only talk for 2 more minutes, and then we're going to have a Quran recitation from Brother Ayaan, followed by a lecture by Imam Mustafa. He is my brother. My name is Hanan. I am giving you the opening remarks. And then after at 7:45, we'll just go back. You're welcome to check out the booths, continue learning, continue asking questions, meet your Muslim neighbors, allow us to meet you as well. We are also interested in meeting you, believe it or not. And then we'll do Maghrib prayer. And throughout the night, we will also be doing 5 draws for the raffle. When you all came in, you got raffle tickets, yes? Yes? Okay, hold on to those, because we're going to do 5 draws throughout the night to give you a little something small to remember us by. So it will be exciting, I hope. Inshallah. Okay. I think that is all that I have to say right now. Oh, this is me. This is my page. Very cool. We're going to move on. Moving on to the Quran recitation, please welcome Brother Ayaan.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon all of you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون ولا تكونوا كالذين تفرقوا واختلفوا من بعد ما جاءهم البينات وأولئك لهم عذاب عظيم يوم تبيض وجوه وتسود وجوه فأما الذين اسودت وجوههم أكفرتم بعد إيمانكم فذوقوا العذاب بما كنتم تكفرون وأما الذين ابيضت وجوههم ففي رحمة الله هم فيها خالدون تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق وما الله يريد ظلما للعالمين ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإلى الله ترجع الأمور.
Thank you, Brother Ayaan, mashallah. So, for our lecture for tonight, I would like to introduce Imam Mustafa Abousaleh. Mustafa is my brother, so I'm going to introduce him as my brother. Mustafa is someone who I would describe as always learning and always teaching, mashallah. He's very, very knowledgeable. Here are some of his credentials. I leave the rest of the brilliance up to him. Thank you. Come on.
I don't know what brilliance she's talking about. None of my other siblings think there is any brilliance. Thank you all for coming today. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I have just dropped something. That's how brilliance starts. All right, well, it's okay. We'll deal with it later. So I've had the pleasure to talk and deliver sensitivity trainings about Islam and Muslims to over 300 organizations. And it's fascinating how every time I want to do it, I would think I know what people want me to say, but it's always different. So what I like to do is maybe just hear from you what type of questions you might have before I start speaking. And that'll help just guide my talk. I know you have visited some of the booths, but it'll be good to hear your comments, your impressions before I start, inshallah, my conversations. So who would like to start? What do you think about the Muslims in the world? Everybody just chuckled. Noor, can I have my phone? Yes, please.
One thing that struck me in the opening prayer or beautiful song was, in that one part where I said, some faces will turn black, some will turn white, and I just wonder, being so in a belief system, like it must be heartbreaking to see faces that maybe you think are going to turn black. I don't know.
Fantastic questions. I was waiting for someone to pick on that. Very brilliant. All right. Noor, I need to write the question down. Give me my phone, please. Give me my phone. Can someone give him a phone and get me my phone, please? Or maybe... All right, so that's one question. By the way, that was a brilliant question, and it has quite a bit in it. All right, next question. Any comments? It's okay. I'm not scary. I don't bite. Sometimes I bite. Not the guests. Yes, please.
I have a general question. How do you go about increasing your faith and like making it something that you can remember through like every minute of the day? I know that like praying is obviously something that will help us remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but is there something that like maybe some people are missing? I feel like I'm like searching for like, I want Islam to be like the biggest thing in my life, and I feel like Allah is 100%, but there's just like, there's always something that makes me busy, or anyways, that's as honest as I'm gonna be.
Fantastic question. I ask myself that question every morning. Fantastic question. Any other comments or questions that you might have? They're just burning questions. I know the community, the Muslim community is still growing here. So maybe we haven't met a lot of Muslims. But I'm sure everybody's watching the news, everybody's watching what's happening. And I'm sure we're developing, since childhood, our perceptions about the other, whoever that other is. Sometimes it becomes very difficult because the other could be even people that are similar to us. So for example, most people have the perception that Arabs are Muslim, all Arabs are Muslims. But when I meet an Arab who's a Christian, an Orthodox Christian, or a Protestant Christian, I'm like, oh, okay, my perception is that all Arabs are Muslims, but that's not the reality. Same thing, people expect all whites to be non-Muslims, but quite a bit of the volunteers here are Canadian whites, Caucasians, who are Muslims. And there are a very large number of Muslims in different positions that do not show that Muslimness because they understand it can cause some issues. So they lead a life of spirituality without wearing it. All right, well, I can get started. So I want to start first with the concept of why Islam, or how did Islam start? What was the first big message that Islam came with? A lot of people, including some Muslims, they would say the first verses that came in the Quran is the holy book, the first few verses, they were meant to be about doctrine. But the very few verses that came in the Quran actually tried to trigger something a bit deeper. It tried to get us out of a state of heedlessness. Heedlessness is when we are going about our life, not knowing what are we doing, why are we here, we're just enjoying the pleasures, to a state where there is a personal accountability. The most difficult thing to instill in people that might not feel that big responsibility, that this life is a gift that they're responsible for, is to try to get them to carry that sense that this is a trust, this is a responsibility that I should perceive the world through. I work with a lot of people in different communities, sometimes people who are struggling with addiction, people who are struggling with some bad habits, and a lot of turning points happen when people take that there is a personal responsibility here, that I am responsible for my life, I'm responsible to carry it out in the best manner. So when the Quran initially came, it came in a society that was very, very far from any concept of spirituality. If there is any traces of spirituality that were in the Arabian Peninsula, they were in very small communities, VIP circles, very small circles. You had some of the Christian people of faith, very small circles. They were calling towards monotheism. They were calling towards God. People looked at them as really good people, but they're irrelevant. The concept of faith became very irrelevant. Society in general, the Arab society back then, was not a society that was outwardly advanced. They had some advancements in language. They had a very, very powerful language. They had some very powerful morals and values, like bravery, for example, like generosity, but it was not modulated. It was to the extreme. So when we say someone is brave, we see, for example, the Arabs had a battle between them called the Battle of Bassus. And Bassus is a camel, is a she-camel. Long story short, someone killed a very beautiful camel for someone else. They went and they killed someone from their family, and then a war that lasted for 70 years to uphold the concept of honor, of bravery. I'm brave. So the value of bravery is a very strong value, but it was not modulated. The value of generosity was out there. People, if someone comes into town, anyone is honored to take them in as guests. And even if they had one single sheep or chicken that they're surviving on, they would go very quickly, cook that animal. They would prepare it for the guest, because the guest is a very honorable person that just walked into someone's house. Unmodulated generosity. And then Islam came, and there were also some negative values. For example, people used to treat women and children as not humans. So if someone passed away, their children can inherit that person's wife if it wasn't their direct mother. So the woman would be inherited as goods. If someone had a baby born who was not a male, it was not uncommon to feel ashamed of that girl and try to get rid of her, because she is bringing shame to that family and that society. There were some negative values there in that society as well. And then when Islam came, it modulated the good values into balance and eliminated a lot of these negative societal norms. And you find that very quickly, within literally 140 years, and this is unfound in any other civilization, where the Arabs expanded so fast, the Muslims expanded so fast, that the Islamic nation or the Islamic empire back then became a hub for knowledge, became a hub for riches, became a hub of wealth, became a hub of values that was being exported everywhere around the world. So there is something that happened, something there that was triggered within the human psyche and the human soul and heart that led to such rapid changes that when you look at history generally, you don't see it happening in other civilizations. So when we look at Islam, sometimes even when you ask Muslims, the first thing that they would try to tell you are the rituals that we perform. But the rituals that we perform, which are the actions, are only a third of the faith. So when we talk about the rituals, these are super important. There are 5 general rituals and pillars of actions that we as Muslims must do. The first one is to testify and believe that there is only one divine, that unity of the Creator. There's only one Creator behind this whole creation. This itself puts the focus of the individual, just sharp, like on the bull's eyes, right? So just straight. There is one creator to this world. And this creator is beyond anything that we can imagine. If any thought or image comes to our mind, the creator is not that. Because if it is that, that means it is confined somehow within this world. So this expands the horizon. From a psychological perspective, if you honor an entity and you're not limiting it by any of your own limitations, that is absolute limitlessness. So it's something that, the divine is beyond any limits that we as individuals have. It doesn't matter what these are. These could be knowledge limits, physical limits, psychological limits, sensual limits, emotional limits. The divine is beyond all these limits. And that just expands the mind to try to look at this world from a different worldview. Something that didn't exist back then in the Arabian Peninsula. Because a lot of what existed as divinities are idols. Yes, they did believe in a major divine, in a god, in a single god, but they also had a lot of statues, they had a lot of idols that they looked up to, that they thought that these are the ones that bring them closer to the divine. So now cut out all these middle entities, now we have a direct connection with the divine. This is very, very powerful. This means that you can cut the middle entities, whether they're idols on rocks, whether they're humans, whether it is money, whether it is our psyche. There's no intermediary between us and the divine. So that initial testimony of faith is the first action. The second one is the prayer. So we have 5 daily prayers that are mandatory. We can pray more, but these 5 daily prayers, they actually structure our day and night. So from the morning, before sunrise, we get up and we perform a prayer. At around when the sun moves from the zenith of the sky, there's another prayer, the afternoon prayer. And then there's an evening prayer when the sun, it's before sunset. Whether in some places when the shadow of something is its length or it's twice its length, that's an evening prayer. And then after sunset, there's another prayer. And then late, at night, there is a final 5th prayer. So this allows the individual to not be just physically aware, but also to be mentally aware and connected. Because if they're going to meet the divine, one of the ways is to try to focus on doing these 5 prayers. This is the very basic that we try to build up. So now I'm trying to teach my son, I pray all 5 daily prayers. I try to call him in. I'm like, just come pray with me one today, just one. Okay, maybe after a while 2. And even, so my son is almost 6, but I have a daughter, she's in Victoria, she's 1.5. And she herself, as part of her socialization, I don't tell her to come and pray, but I'm praying, and the wife is praying, and her brother is praying. She is also being trained to be aware of what this is. When my friend babysits her at their home, they also pray. So she also prays. And this builds that continuous connection with the divine. The third pillar is the fasting of Ramadan. A lot of people, when they think about the fasting, the only thing they perceive from it is the physical challenge. It can be physically challenging, because here in Canada in the summer, you could be fasting 15, 16 hours. Usually we train before. So, we start a few months before. We fast 1 day a week, and then we make it 2 days, and then 3 days. By the time Ramadan comes, which is 30 days, our body are already used to it. It's fascinating the mental barrier that people have. I've met so many people that they would tell me, I just can't do it. So why can't you do it? I need to work out. Well, I used to fast 15, 16, hours. I would go to the gym. I would really lift, a lot of weight. I might go swimming. I'm still fasting. So there's that mental barrier that we have. And when we break it and you feel that you actually are in control of your body, obviously, unless you have a medical situation and you don't have to fast if you can't, if the doctor says you can't, then you can't. But that itself has a spiritual component, because the month of Ramadan is the best month in the Islamic calendar. The best 29 or 30 days in daytime are in Ramadan. And the next one is zakah. Zakah is like tithing, for example, right? It's a mandatory percentage that we take out of our savings, about 2.5%, that is not ours. It's actually the right of the people that are in need. I found something very intriguing. I've been living in Canada for about 25 years. So I came very, very young here. And I found there's an element of charity, because I've been in the philanthropic field as well for about 22 years. Sometimes when people give, they feel good and they feel superior. In Islam, it's the other way around. You're giving the person that donation or that money because it is their right. And if they refuse to take it, you're actually at a disadvantage. In fact, the idea of giving is so spiritual that the Muslim scholars spoke about how to give. So I'll ask, generally, when you give, have you ever, who has given money, like, to people that might be homeless or maybe at a traffic light? Did anyone do that? How would you do that? So if I, if I come and I say, okay, give me money, how would you do that? Can someone let me know, like, how would you give it? Like, what would be the hand gesture? What would be the facial gestures?
Usually very quickly, without making eye contact, and trying to get away from there as fast as possible. Very quickly, get away, no eye contact. Okay. And how would you give it when you hand it? Just take it quickly. Just here. All right. And all of my day. Did you see the gesture? Try that. Try that one more time and notice how he did it. Did you see that gesture? He has his hand, and this is not intentional. This is something in our psyche. He has his hand on top, right? And the person who's taking is taking from the bottom. In Islam, when I give that charity, I put my hand under, because the person that is taking it is the one who's superior. I'm not superior. I could be tomorrow I can get sick and I could lose all my wealth, and then now I would need that money. So the scholars in Islam, they articulated the giving by putting your hand below the person who's taking it. And in fact, you and me are in big trouble if I have to give that 2.5% and I find no one to take it. I'm in trouble because now I cannot practice that ritual. And that money that is not mine, is someone else's. If I can't get it out, I'm in trouble. Maybe the poor person is in trouble, but I'm also in trouble. So you see, all these rituals are connected to psychological and spiritual aspects as well. And the final action is the pilgrimage, is going to Mecca. We recently passed the season of pilgrimage for Muslims in Mecca. Did anyone watch that on TV or hear anything about it? Beside the stampede that might have happened, or people from the heat, they have passed away. So it's a beautiful, beautiful ritual. About 5 million people every year go to Mecca. They mimic some of the journey of Abraham, peace be upon him. Abraham and Ishmael, peace be upon them, in some rituals in Mecca for a few days, and then they come back. And for people, this is a life journey. Not all Muslims will be able to do it, because you need the financial capability, you need the health capability, and you need to be able to get that visa. Because there's about 2 billion Muslims in the world, and if you just do a simple math, you can tell that most Muslims, even if they're all capable, financially and health-wise, they're not going to get that visa. Because the place can only take maximum 5 million people at a time.
So to be called in and to be invited, that's an honor. That's an honor that the divine has given that person, and they should take it responsibly. These are the 5 actions. Yes, please.
I was invited personally by Shazia,
Yeah.
and that is how I felt privileged and very, very supportive and happy and excited to be here. And thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. So this is the actions component. There's a whole aspect which is intellectual. So these are beliefs. A lot of our understanding in belief, that the faculty of it is in the heart. But actually the faculty of belief is the intellect. It's things that we do not see, we cannot touch, we cannot smell, but we can conceive in our mind. For example, can anyone smell God or touch God or see God? In the Muslim faith, you can't. Not in this life. In the hereafter, you will. So, but you can conceive the concept of God. Can we see the angels? Some people, in some instances, they would see the angels in the human form, because the angels can take different shapes. But generally speaking, we do not see the angels, despite being present everywhere. In fact, in the Islamic tradition, it is said that there is a house, it's called the higher house, in which 70,000 angels go every day, one time in their life, and then they leave and they never come back. So you can imagine the number of angels. The angels are created from divine light. The angels are genderless. Is God genderless or gendered? Genderless. Why?
Inclusion of all.
The inclusion of all, okay. Good idea. Anybody else?
Well, I just think to assign any kind of human form to the Creator is diminishing the whole concept of the Creator.
Yeah. That's the right answer. When I was young, when I was as young as my son, I went to my dad and I said, Dad, is God a male or a female? Who asked this question? Nobody asked this question. And my dad was a bit dumbfounded, and he said, in the Quran, God refers to himself as huwa. Huwa is the pronoun for a male. And that's all I got. My son, a few months ago, walked up to me. I said, Dad, is God a male or a female? It just happens over and over. So I told him that he's not a male and he's not a female, because the concept of gender is a human construct, is a creation construct, and God is beyond that construct. And God refers to himself in the Arabic Quran as huwa, because huwa is the default gender in the language. Not because he is a male, but that's the default gender in the language. Every language has a genius to it, has a specific framework. And in Arabic, the genius of the language says that the default gender is the male. In fact, zawj, which means a he spouse, is referred to in the Quran for the male and the female. And this happens in many places in the Arabic language. And sometimes it's also the other way, like tariq or a path in Arabic, you could refer to it as in the feminine form or the masculine form. But doesn't mean that God is a male. Same thing with the angels. When we watch anything on TV, they portray the angels as females, right? Like when we grow up, you do the angel, whatever. But why? Did we ever think about that? Like, why are the angels females? And why are the devils males? It's very strange, right? Isn't that strange? Despite actually, the devil not being a male or a female, And the angels are not males or females.
لا ليس هذا ولا هذا. لا أشرح لك. لا بنت وولد. لا ليس هذا ولا هذا. لا يعني مع بعض. ليس هذا ولا ذا.
He's asking me the same question again, and he's like, is God both a male and a female? I said none, because that's a gender, right? He understands what I'm saying. So that also builds our perception and horizons, expands it, right? Things like believing in the hereafter, after this life, what comes after it? We haven't seen that yet, so that's an intellectual activity. So there are 6 things that we intellectually believe in: God, the angels, the prophets and the messengers, the hereafter, the destination, or what we call qadar, determination, and what am I missing here? And the scriptures. So 6 things. We might see the scriptures, but we don't see all the scriptures that the divine has sent to everybody. So that's the capacity of the intellect. There's another capacity of spirituality. Spirituality in Islam, the faculty of it is the soul or the heart. So things like how you give charity, that's a spiritual engagement. How you do it, how you think about it. It's simply defined in the Islamic tradition that tazkiyah, or ihsan, which is excellence, is to worship the divine as if you're seeing the divine. Are we seeing the divine? No. So it continues and says, if you're not seeing the divine, know that the divine is seeing you. So how would you approach life when the divine is seeing you? How much time do I have?
You have 7 minutes.
7 minutes, okay. Let me address the 2 questions that came up. So the first question, which is a very good question, this is what happens in translations. So the actual wording of this, يَوْمَ تَبْيَضُّ وُجُوهٌ, when some faces increase in light. So from the light, they look brighter. وَتَسْوَدُّ وُجُوهٌ, they are darkened, not like blackened because of that removal of the divine light. These black and white, when you put them in translations, that's why a lot of the translations, sometimes you need to look deeper of the original word. They're not looking at physical blackness or whiteness. They're looking at spiritual light and lack of it. So when it's translated like that, it captured your attention, and thank you for bringing it up, because most people will just feel that Islam is a racist religion. But that's not the intention here. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And for the sister here, when she asked the question, how would you keep faith strong in your life? This is the journey that we have in this world. The journey that we have in this world is to try our best, only our best, and continue to push ourselves slowly, and gradually, trying to maintain the presence of the divine in our hearts. Should I continue? Do you have a comment?
I have one more question.
Yes, please.
So I feel like I'm knowledgeable about Islam, but when somebody asks me to explain the faith, I start from the very beginning and I lose my focus and their focus, because I'm like, I don't really think this is all the information that you needed right now.
Yeah.
So if you're talking to somebody that's asking you, hey, what about, like, tell me, I know that like 5 pillars and stuff like that, but like, tell me something about your religion or whatever, where would you start in that conversation? Or how would you have that conversation with somebody that doesn't know anything about religion?
Okay. So let me finish my thought and I'll get to that. I was in the hospital doing some, we call it in Canada, spiritual practitioner. We don't like to use the word chaplaincy, because chaplaincy is associated with the Judeo-Christian historical context. So Canada in general, they started to change these wording and terms to start calling them spiritual care or spiritual practitioner. And I was called, sometimes you get called into some very tough situations that really impact you. I was called into a room by a family. This man, he knew he was going to die, and it was a surprise to him. He had a very late cancer, very late stage cancer. And he was told he didn't have a lot of time. And the way he took it is that he was very, very surprised. And he was screaming very loud in the hospital. I'm sure he was in pain, but there was also a moral pain as well. And every time I wanted to walk in, he would tell his family, don't let him come in. And he can continue screaming. And for me, my duty is to try to come. And, just help him in the transition. In the best way, I've done this numerous times. In the best way without imposing my own faith. So in Canada, you cannot impose your faith. So what happened many years ago is that the industry of chaplaincy in the mainland and in Fraser Valley was managed by Judeo-Christian organizations. And it got so bad that the proselytization got so bad that they would not help you unless they got a word from you that you've converted to whatever their faith group is. And then there was a very hard crackdown from the agency and fired half of all those chaplains. This is a major, major incident that happened many years ago. So Canada started to change these systems, and you cannot preach. You have to be there present spiritually without converting people. So this man, when you try to help someone transition, you focus on the human spirituality. Sometimes they ask you, and then you can answer about your own faith. But this man refused to get any help. And a few days later, he passes on. But that left me thinking really, really hard. Why would someone be in so much denial, knowing that they're transitioning from this world to another world, according to my belief at least? And I recognized very quickly that our time in this world is to be so prepared for that transition that when it happens, we know it as well as we know our names. We know exactly what's going to happen. We know exactly what's coming after it. And we are so spiritually ready. We're so morally ready. We're so physically ready that it's a simple transition. You're going from one realm into the next realm. And if we try to understand that, you understand that the preparation is not just on one front. The preparation is on multiple fronts. One of the volunteers here, can I mention the story you mentioned to me, Ahmed? About your ancestor, your grandfather? Can I mention that? Can I mention it? All right. So one of the volunteers here was telling me something very interesting. He said he's from a country that there was some sort of government crackdown. They took the land from one group of people and they gave it to another group of people. And that man, his ancestors, ended up building some restaurant. He lived his life, very well. They run the restaurant. And before, when he grew older, he said, "This is not my land." So he went to look for the descendants of who owned this land before it was given to him by the government. And he found them. And he told them, "I want to give you the land. This is yours. This is not mine." And they told him, "Okay, we don't want it right now. Continue working. Once you pass away, then we'll come and inherit this land from you." And when he was asked by his children, "Why would you do that?" he said, "Why would I keep it when it's not mine? This is part of being ready. for this transition, because this is a very limited world. We can live in it 50, 60, 70 years, 80 years, 100, 200 years. Eventually, we're going to move on. Eventually. And when we move on, nothing in this world is going to matter except the good stuff that we did. Nothing else is going to matter. In fact, my wife is a very wise one. She told me, you know, Mustafa, in 100 years, everything that you know, everyone that you know, everything that you have done, and everyone that have known about the people that know you would all be gone. You will be literally not even in people's memories anymore. And I was just like, wow. She's much younger than me. She's 6 years younger than me. Not much, I guess. But 6 years is considered significant. But she's very wise. She's very wise. So if I'm not going to be remembered at all, except in the Divine's memory, that's it, in the Divine's memory, isn't it important? Isn't it wise, if I'm only going to be remembered at some point in the Divine's memory, isn't it wise that I live my life according to what's going to help me afterward? And this is one way the sister was asking, how do we keep faith, present in our lives? Now, how do we talk about our faith? I've been doing this for over 22 years. I have never given exact answers or repeated exact answers. So for example, today's talk, I actually came wanting to talk about something completely different. And then I stood here and I just found myself speaking like this. And sometimes it is the energy you get from the people. What does that person need? Sometimes the person is going through a very difficult time in their life. And you could mention the difficulty that the prophets go through, the prophets and the messengers. Life is difficult, very, very, very difficult. Even for people who are very well off, they go through challenges that sometimes average Joes like ourselves are not aware of. People that are sometimes in very high influential positions, and I know many of them, they go through this, they have to make decisions. None of us, and thank God, none of us, or maybe some of you might be, don't have to contend with very difficult decisions. You see, for example, people that are doctors, generally, that are in war zones, for example. When you talk to them or when they speak to the media, they have to make decisions about who to save and who not to save. Very, very difficult. Very, very difficult decision. So every one of us has certain gifts. And these gifts, they are responsibilities. I was talking to a group of people, and I said, sometimes a person is very educated, they're very smart. They have more degrees. I have about 5 degrees. Sometimes I wonder why I keep collecting degrees. I'm not saying I'm smart, but I have certain knowledge that puts me in a specific position of responsibility. So if I don't utilize that, I'm not fulfilling my duty as a Muslim in this world. I'm also ignorant about many things. So we have with us many scholars, Sheikh Abdul Razak, very knowledgeable about the Quran, very, very knowledgeable. So when I'm with him, it's my duty to ask him questions so I can learn. So I can learn from him. And I think if we as society and as neighbors carry that responsibility and understand it, that I'm a neighbor, let me ask about someone. Let me try to help them. You don't know what they might be going through. In Victoria, very recently, and I'm sure you guys read the news, someone just decided to write a piece of paper and go to the prayer place of Muslims. And it was a very bad piece of paper, attacking Muslims, attacking Islam. I can't even repeat what some of the stuff is said. It's very easy to go and just on a demonstration and scream. Screaming is awesome, especially in demonstrations. It just feels good. You just let that energy out. But how is that going to help anything? Someone came to the prayer space a couple weeks later and defecated where the Muslims pray in Victoria. This is a reality, right? Like, the Muslims came to pray, they found human feces there. Great. This is a reality, right? The Jewish community had someone get a rock, and the rabbi is a very good friend of mine, and they just broke the window on there. All right. I mean, we can all go to the streets and start screaming, or we can try to connect. And it has been proven that the more we're connected, the more the community is resilient. So when these things come up, there's an understanding. Okay, that's not one of us. That's someone representing maybe a group of people, but that's not everybody. So I'm hoping that this talk has helped a little bit. And thank you so much for listening to me. And I'll give it back to Hanan. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair, Mustafa. Did I tell you brilliant or what? Am I right or am I right? MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Okay, so, can I put the program back up? Hang on. Here we go. Okay, so we have just wrapped up the keynote speech, and now the house is back open for you to peruse as you wish. Please continue to look at the informational booths, try on some hijabs if you would like to experience what we experience when we get dressed in the morning. Come learn about prayer, come learn about the Quran, and on your way out, there are more reading materials for you to collect. If you want to join our mailing list, OBRF's mailing list, to get updates on future events or summaries of what OBRF has accomplished, you are more than welcome to join that. Just type in your email. And we have a donation machine. If you are feeling gracious, we would be happy to, what he was saying with the hands and whatnot. All that brilliant stuff that's beyond my scope, not my division. There's also refreshments, food and drink and desserts. Feel free to try it. Get some henna, art and stuff on your hands, and calligraphy over there. What am I missing? There is a raffle. I'm assuming I'm supposed to draw some numbers. Okay, I think I'm ready. Are you ready is the question. Get your tickets out. Just one this time. Oh, we're going to build up suspense throughout the night, folks. This is going to be awesome. Okay, let's make it unbiased. Here we go. Bismillah. Okay, I just read out the last four numbers, right? Okay, so the last four numbers. 1990. 19. Hey, we have a winner! So congratulations to the sister. There are still 4 more chances. So keep perusing. Throughout the night, we'll just keep pulling tickets. Am I forgetting anything? No. That's it. Oh, and at 8:15 we will do our Maghrib prayer. Mustafa explained that we have 5 daily prayers. Maghrib is number 4. So we will be doing that, the Muslims. You are invited to watch that if you would like. Come learn about prayer. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. And enjoy the rest of your night.